The Escalator Horror of Hubei. On July 26, 2015, Sheng Liujuan, a 30-year-old mother, was shopping with her 2-year-old son at a mall in Jingzhou, Hubei province, China. It was supposed to be an ordinary day of browsing stores and spending time together. The mall was busy with weekend shoppers, families moving between floors on elevators and escalators. As Xiang approached the top of an escalator on the 4th floor, something went terribly wrong. Security camera footage later showed what happened in those critical seconds. Just as she reached the top landing, the floor panel at the escalator's exit suddenly collapsed beneath her feet. In that moment, Xiang made a split-second decision that would cost her life. With remarkable maternal instinct, she pushed her toddler forward into the arms of a nearby shop assistant, who had noticed the panel starting to give way. Her son was safely thrust forward, but Xiang couldn't save herself. As the metal plate gave way completely, she fell waist-deep into the running machinery below. For nearly 5 minutes, Xiang struggled against the escalator's mechanical grip. The moving stairs continued to run, pulling her deeper into the works. Witnesses reported hearing her screams echoing through the mall as she was slowly dragged downward. The metal teeth of the machinery tore through flesh and bone while horrified onlookers watched helplessly. Mall staff had no emergency shutoff procedure to follow. By the time technicians arrived to dismantle the escalator, Xiang was already dead. The autopsy revealed she suffered massive internal injuries as the mechanism crushed her internal organs while she was still conscious. Blood loss alone would have been fatal, but the mechanical trauma was catastrophic. An investigation later found that maintenance workers had removed the floor panel earlier that day and failed to secure it properly before reopening the escalator to the public. They had not even placed warning signs around the area. The false ceiling tragedy. Sunil and Chandru. On December 12, 2019, 2 young men arrived at BM Habitat Mall in Mysuru, India, for what should have been routine maintenance work. Sunil, 35, from Niralagupi village, and Chandru, 22, from Gokulam, were hired to replace advertising banners on the 4th floor of the bustling shopping center. Both men were experienced in this type of work, having done similar jobs across the city. The task required them to access a section above a false ceiling made of plaster of Paris. Before they began, their supervisor explicitly warned them about the danger. Don't step on the false ceiling, he told them firmly. It won't support your weight. The ceiling was designed only for aesthetic purposes, not to bear any significant load. But in a fatal miscalculation, the warning went unheeded. At approximately 11:30 a.m., security cameras captured the 2 men climbing above the decorative ceiling. Witnesses reported hearing Chandru joke about taking a shortcut across the plaster surface rather than walking around to the proper maintenance platform. Sunil followed his younger colleague's lead. The weight of both men on the fragile material was catastrophic. Without warning, the ceiling gave way beneath them. Shoppers below looked up at the sound of cracking plaster to see 2 human forms plummeting through the air. The men fell nearly 40 feet, screaming as they dropped through empty space. The impact on the hard tile floor below was devastating. Medical reports later confirmed that neither died instantly. Chandru suffered multiple compound fractures, his bones protruding through his skin as he lay conscious on the mall floor. Sunil's skull fractured on impact, causing massive cerebral hemorrhaging. Mall patrons watched in horror as both men gasped for breath, blood pooling beneath their broken bodies. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but the internal injuries were too severe. Both men died before reaching the hospital, their bodies so mangled that family members later struggled to identify them. The Yunnan service lift disaster. On July 26, 2013, a crowded shopping mall in Yunnan province, China, was filled with weekend shoppers seeking relief from the summer heat. In the back corridors of the building, away from the polished floors and bright displays, was a service elevator. It was designed solely for moving inventory and equipment, not people. Signs clearly marked it as a freight lift, with warnings against passenger use. Despite these restrictions, the lift had become an unofficial shortcut for both employees and shoppers wanting to avoid the long waits for passenger elevators. That afternoon, 20 people crowded into the small metal box, more than doubling its intended capacity. Among them were 2 mall employees and 18 shoppers, including 3 children. The service elevator began its ascent from the 1st floor. As it reached the 3rd floor, witnesses in the hallway reported hearing an ominous mechanical grinding. Then came a sharp snap, the sound of the main cable breaking. For a fraction of a second, the elevator hung suspended. Then it plummeted. Inside the falling box, passengers were briefly weightless before being slammed against the ceiling as the emergency brakes engaged, then failed. One survivor later described the sensation as like having your insides tear away from your body. The elevator crashed into the basement level at devastating speed. The impact crushed those at the bottom of the car instantly. 3 people, a 45-year-old woman, a 32-year-old man, and a 24-year-old female employee, were killed by massive compressive forces. Autopsies revealed shattered pelvic bones, crushed internal organs, and traumatic aortic ruptures. The man lived for nearly 4 minutes after impact, drowning in his own blood as his punctured lungs filled with fluid. 17 others suffered serious injuries, severed limbs, spinal damage, and traumatic brain brain injuries. Rescuers described the scene as a metal coffin filled with broken bodies. Blood seeped under the elevator doors as mall security attempted to pry them open with crowbars. A subsequent investigation revealed that the lift had not been inspected for 3 years, despite regulations requiring annual maintenance. The Miraflores Mall Plunge, Ana Lucia Menendez. On December 18, 2022, a 22-year-old kiosk worker was arranging Christmas ornaments at her small jewelry stand in Guatemala City's popular Miraflores Mall. Anna had been employed there for just 3 months, saving money to continue her university studies. 4 floors above, in the mall's rooftop parking area, 19-year-old Diego Velasquez was arguing with his girlfriend in his father's sedan. Witnesses reported seeing the young man rev the engine in anger before suddenly accelerating. The car shot forward at high speed, crashing through the concrete safety barrier designed to prevent vehicles from approaching the edge. The sedan became airborne, plunging through the thin metal sheeting that formed the mall's decorative roof. The impact tore a massive hole in the ceiling. For a brief moment, shoppers looked up in confusion at the sudden sound of tearing metal. Then, 3,000 pounds of metal and glass fell directly toward the ground floor. Anna had only enough time to look upward before the vehicle crashed onto her kiosk. The car landed with such force that it continued through the tile floor into the basement level. Security camera footage showed Anna disappearing beneath the wreckage in an instant. The sound echoed throughout the mall like a bomb detonation. First responders arrived within minutes. They found Anna crushed beneath the mangled vehicle, her body so severely compressed that it was initially mistaken for debris. Medical examiners later determined she had survived the initial impact, suffering catastrophic internal injuries. Her lungs had been punctured by shattered ribs, her skull fractured in multiple places, and her spinal column severed. For approximately 2 minutes, she remained conscious, gasping for breath as shoppers frantically tried to lift the wreckage off her body. Blood pooled around the destroyed kiosk as rescuers worked. By the time they freed her, Anna had already died from traumatic asphyxiation. Remarkably, Diego Velasquez survived with only moderate injury. The blue sapphire ceiling collapse, Harendra Badi and Shaquille. On July 19, 2020, 2 men were enjoying a Sunday afternoon at Blue Sapphire Mall in Greater Noida, India. Harendra, a 42-year-old software engineer, was shopping for his daughter's birthday present. Shaquille, 37, worked as an accountant and had come to meet a friend for coffee. Neither man knew the other as they passed near the main escalator on the ground floor. Above them, extending 5 stories up, was an elaborate decorative ceiling made of heavy iron grille panels. Each panel weighed approximately 80 pounds and had been installed during the mall's renovation 2 years earlier. Maintenance records would later show that the ceiling fixtures had been flagged for improper installation during an inspection 4 months prior, but no repairs had been made. At 3:17 p.m., as both men happened to walk beneath the same section of ceiling, security cameras captured a sudden movement above. Without warning, 3 massive iron panels broke free from their moorings. Shoppers on upper floors reported hearing a metallic scraping sound, followed by the panels tearing away completely. The heavy grills plummeted 5 floors, gaining deadly velocity. Harendra looked up at the last second, raising his hands in a futile protective gesture. Shaquille never saw it coming. The metal struck both men with devastating force. The impact was so severe that the iron panels bent around their bodies. Mall security rushed to the scene to find both men still alive, crushed beneath the twisted metal. Blood spread across the polished floor as other shoppers attempted to lift the heavy grills. Harendra was conscious, screaming in agony as the jagged edges of the panels cut deeper into his torso with each movement. His ribcage had been shattered on impact, sending bone fragments into his lungs and heart. Shaquille had suffered a catastrophic head injury. The metal had struck him directly on the skull, fracturing it in 16 places. He lay motionless except for irregular gasping breaths. Paramedics arrived within 7 minutes, but by then, both men had already died from their injuries. Mall management later blamed strong winds for the collapse, despite the indoor location. The Avenue Mall parking lot tragedy. Kathy Pendergrass. On December 23, 2024, a 61-year-old retired nurse was helping a stranger at the Avenue Mall in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The mall was crowded with holiday shoppers rushing to complete their Christmas purchases. Pendergrass had noticed an elderly man struggling with his wheelchair near the main entrance and offered her assistance. As she guided the wheelchair toward the man's parked vehicle, 78-year-old Raymond Donaldson was backing his modified Honda CR-V out of a nearby parking space. Donaldson had suffered a stroke 3 months earlier, which had left him with partial paralysis in his left side. His vehicle had been altered to accommodate his disability, but he was still adjusting to the modified controls. Security footage later showed Donaldson becoming confused as he reversed. Instead of pressing the brake pedal, he mistakenly pushed the accelerator with increasing force. The SUV, which had been converted for postal delivery with reinforced bumpers and a strengthened frame, suddenly shot backward at high speed. Pendergrass, focused on helping the man in the wheelchair, never saw the vehicle coming. The CR-V slammed into a parked car, creating a narrow space with Pendergrass caught between the two vehicles. The impact crushed her midsection with such force that witnesses reported hearing the sickening sound of bones breaking above the screech of tires. Donaldson, still confused and now panicking, continued to press the accelerator. The SUV's wheels spun against the asphalt as the vehicle compressed Pendergrass further against the parked car. Her pelvis was shattered instantly, and her spinal cord was severed at the L3 vertebra. Despite the catastrophic injuries, she remained conscious, screaming in agony as internal bleeding began immediately. Bystanders finally managed to alert Donaldson, who released the accelerator. Emergency services arrived within minutes and rushed Pendergrass to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Doctors performed emergency surgery, but the internal damage was too extensive. For 5 days, she fought for her life in the ICU, suffering multiple organ failures as her body struggled to cope with the trauma. On December 28, 2024, Kathy Pendergrass died of complications from her injuries. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.